1 minute ago, footage surfaced showing Niagara Falls doing something it has never done in recorded memory. The thundering curtain of water, 6 million cubic feet per minute, appeared to shudder. Tourists clutched railings as the mist shifted direction, and rangers sealed off observation platforms without explanation. Across social media, videos spread of discolored water and strange vibrations. Scientists rushed to the gorge with equipment normally reserved for earthquake zones. Authorities closed sections of Goat Island and redirected traffic away from Prospect Point. Is one of the world's greatest waterfalls collapsing beneath itself? Or is something far more dangerous stirring beneath those ancient rocks? The rumors began circulating in late 2024. Whispered reports of tremors felt in gift shops, claims of cracks appearing in viewing platforms, speculation that engineers had discovered something beneath the riverbed they could not explain. But this was only the first warning. The truth about Niagara Falls is far stranger than any headline can capture. What appears eternal has never been still. What seems permanent has been retreating for millennia. And what tourists photograph as a fixed wonder of nature is, in geological reality, a system in constant and sometimes violent transformation. To understand what may be happening now, we must first understand what Niagara truly is. Niagara Falls was born approximately 12,000 years ago, when the last great ice sheet covering North America finally began to retreat. A mile-thick glacier had pressed down on this land for tens of thousands of years. When it melted, it carved the Great Lakes and released torrents of water searching for the lowest ground. The newborn Niagara River found a gap in a 650-kilometer ridge of ancient rock called the Niagara Escarpment. This ridge was not a mountain or a fault line, it was the remnant of an ancient seabed, layers of stone deposited 430 million years ago when shallow tropical waters covered this region. But the ridge was not uniform. At the top sat a hard layer of Lockport dolostone, erosion-resistant limestone formed from the shells of ancient marine creatures. Beneath it lay something far weaker, the Rochester Formation, composed mainly of soft, crumbling shale. The signs of instability were there from the beginning. When water first poured over this escarpment, the falls stood near present-day Lewiston and Queenston, 7 miles downstream from where tourists gather today. In the 12 millennia since, the falls have retreated southward, carving the spectacular gorge visible from both nations.
The mechanism is simple but relentless. Water pounds the soft shale beneath the hard caprock. The shale erodes, creating a hollow overhang. Eventually, unsupported slabs of dolostone crack and collapse into the churning plunge pool below. According to geological surveys from the New York State Museum, this recession occurred at an average rate of 3 to 5 feet per year for most of recorded history. The falls consumed rock like a slow-motion saw cutting through ancient stone. Survey records from 1842 onward document this steady disappearance. The geological layers tell a story of inevitable destruction. Winter makes it worse. Water seeps into cracks in the caprock, freezes, and expands with tremendous force. The freeze-thaw cycle acts like a chisel, prying apart joints in the Lockport dolostone. Hydrostatic pressure builds beneath the surface, pushing stone segments apart until fractures become fissures, and fissures become collapses. Core samples taken during the 1969 dewatering project revealed a complex system of joints in the limestone caprock, more numerous near the crest and reaching vertically down to the shale level below. Each joint represented a potential failure point. Each fracture was a pathway for water to reach the vulnerable rock beneath. And then came the interventions. In the 20th century, humans decided to slow what nature had been doing for 12,000 years. The 1950 Niagara Treaty between Canada and the United States established flow requirements. 2,800 cubic meters per second during daylight tourist hours in summer, reduced to 1,400 cubic meters at night. What most visitors never realize is that up to 3/4 of the Niagara River now flows through underground tunnels to hydroelectric plants, never touching the falls at all. 18 sluice gates operated by the International Niagara Control Works regulate every drop. Engineers sculpted the flanks of Horseshoe Falls itself, deepening the edges and reducing the lip length to create the illusion of greater volume. The modern falls are, in environmental historian Daniel McFarland's words, a completely man-made and artificial cataract. This engineering reduced the erosion rate to approximately 1 foot per year, down from the historical 3 to 5 feet. Some projections suggest future recession could slow to 1 foot every 10 years. The falls, it seemed, had been tamed. But nature has never accepted human schedules. The summer of 1969 revealed what lay beneath the beauty. Congress authorized the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to investigate why the American Falls appeared to be dying. Massive rock falls in 1931 and 1954 had piled house-sized boulders at its base, forming a talus slope that halved the vertical drop. Newspapers declared Niagara an incurably ill loved one. Starting June 9, 1969, over 1,000 trucks dumped 28,000 tons of rock to create a 600-foot cofferdam. The Niagara River was diverted entirely over Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side. For the first time in 12,000 years, the American Falls went silent. What engineers found beneath the silenced waters changed everything. The exposed riverbed was crisscrossed with fractures. Colored dye pumped into cracks emerged in unexpected places, revealing water pathways that had gone undetected for decades. Sensors measured rock stress at 870 pounds per square inch, parallel to the gorge. The caprock was under enormous tension. 2 human bodies were discovered among the exposed rocks, along with millions of coins thrown by wishful tourists. But the most disturbing discovery was structural. The talus pile that seemed like an eyesore was actually supporting the remaining rock face. Removing it would accelerate collapse. The Corps installed steel bolts, cable tendons, and electronic rockslide sensors. They stabilized what they could and accepted what they could not change. On November 25, 1969, the cofferdam was demolished and water returned to the American Falls. Yet the silence had taught them something they could not forget. Today, Niagara Falls is watched by a surveillance network spanning 2 nations. The International Niagara Board of Control, established in 1953, monitors water levels, flow rates, and structural conditions in real time. NOAA gauging stations track every fluctuation. LiDAR scanning creates millimeter-accurate maps of the crest line. In 2009, 2012, and 2013, observers documented the dislodgement of 3 rock blocks from the Horseshoe Falls crest. Each collapse was small, localized, and consistent with slow erosion, but each also demonstrated that the process never stops. Maintenance diversions are scheduled regularly. New York State has discussed dewatering the American Falls again to repair century-old bridges on Goat Island. Every intervention is planned, monitored, and reversible. What came next shocked even the scientists. The recent footage that sparked global concern appears, upon investigation, to be part of a familiar pattern. Officials from both the International Joint Commission and Niagara Parks Commission have confirmed no unusual seismic activity as of their latest statements. The water discoloration reported by some visitors is consistent with seasonal variations in sediment load from Lake Erie.
Strange tremors felt in nearby buildings may result from the normal vibration of 168,000 cubic meters of water per minute striking rock. The human body is sensitive to low-frequency rumbles that have always been present at Niagara. Authorities emphasize vigilance without panic. The falls are monitored constantly. Any significant change would trigger immediate investigation. But the ground had one more secret. The fear of sudden catastrophic collapse persists because it has happened before. On July 28, 1954, witnesses watched as a pie-shaped section of Prospect Point broke away, sending an estimated 185,000 tons of rock thundering into the gorge. Diners in the Rainbow Room restaurant across the river saw the dust cloud rise. A 9-year-old child had noticed cracks the day before. That collapse was localized and survivable. It reshaped the American Falls, but did not destroy it. Geologists explain that total system failure, a simultaneous collapse of the entire crest, is unsupported by any evidence. The falls erode piece by piece, not all at once. Risk modeling by engineers suggests that modern monitoring would detect instability weeks or months before any major event. The sensors installed in 1969 and upgraded continuously since then have never failed to warn of developing stress. And yet, certainty remains impossible. Geology always holds surprises. Niagara itself was born from catastrophic change, when ice sheets retreated and continents rebounded from their weight. The whirlpool downstream marks a place where the falls once intersected a buried gorge and tore through it in weeks, possibly days. Scientists cannot rule out accelerated erosion if water diversion policies change. They cannot guarantee that a particularly harsh winter will not weaken the caprock beyond prediction. Climate change models suggest drier conditions in the Great Lakes watershed, which could alter flow patterns in ways never recorded. Monitoring allows for response, not prevention. The distinction matters. More than 13 million tourists visit Niagara Falls annually, generating over $2.4 billion for local economies. 40,000 jobs in the hospitality sector depend on the constant presence of that curtain of water. Hotels, restaurants, casinos, and souvenir shops form an ecosystem as complex as the geological one beneath the gorge. When COVID-19 closed borders in 2020, the region hemorrhaged revenue. Businesses shuttered permanently. Workers waited months for callbacks that sometimes never came. The psychological effect of barriers and closures extended beyond economics into identity. Rumors of instability carry real costs. Misinformation spreads fastest when people are already afraid. A viral video claiming collapse could empty hotel rooms for weeks before any official response. Transparent communication has become as vital as engineering. Rosa Delgado has operated a gift shop on the Canadian side for 31 years. She remembers the day in 1954 when her grandmother described seeing dust rise from the American Falls. She remembers her own children asking if the falls would disappear in their lifetime. Now she watches younger generations photograph the falls with phones, rarely looking up from their screens. She wonders if they understand what stands before them, something ancient enough to precede every nation that claims it, yet fragile enough to change within a single lifetime. "I tell them to listen," she said. "The sound is the falls talking. It never stops talking." For the Haudenosaunee people who have inhabited this region for over 13,000 years, the falls are far more than a tourist attraction. In Seneca tradition, Niagara is home to the thunder beings, powerful spirits who live behind the curtain of water and protect humanity from darker forces. The thunderous roar, audible from miles away, was understood as the voice of these spirits. The mist rising from the base carried prayers to the Creator. The falls featured in origin stories, healing narratives, and ceremonies that continue today. Rick Hill, a Tuscarora elder who grew up near the falls, has reclaimed over 700 Indigenous stories rooted in this landscape. The authentic Maid of the Mist legend describes not sacrifice, but rescue, a grieving woman saved by the thunder beings and taught the balance between human and spiritual worlds. This was not mere geography, it was sacred ground. Preservation is not merely technical. Every intervention changes what it seeks to protect. The control structures that slow erosion also transform the falls into something they never were naturally.
The silence of a dewatered falls is disturbing precisely because Niagara has meant continuity for so long. When water returned in 1969, observers noted subtle differences. Channels had shifted, small rocks had rearranged. The falls were never quite the same after their 5-month silence. Nature can be paused, it cannot be frozen. The future of Niagara Falls extends 50,000 years by current projections. At the reduced erosion rate, the falls will eventually retreat to Lake Erie, their journey finally complete. Long before that, they will reach softer rock formations near Navy Island, where recession may suddenly accelerate. Plans exist for rerouting or further slowing the water if conditions demand. Science-based response models guide every decision. International cooperation between Canada and the United States continues through formal treaties and daily coordination. Preparedness operates without panic. Monitoring continues without publicity. Still, questions remain that no instrument can answer. Niagara Falls stands as both powerful and vulnerable, shaped by ancient forces and managed by humans who arrived only moments ago in geological time. The limits of prediction are real. The role of modern technology is supportive, not controlling. Two nations cooperate across a border that the river itself ignores. Nature refuses to be permanent. Stone yields to water. Caprock surrenders to shale. What tourists see today is not what existed a century ago, and will not exist a century hence. The falls teach something essential. Change is not an aberration, it is the condition of existence itself. Silence is not always disaster. Sometimes it is transition, a pause between one state and another. Uncertainty is the price of living with natural wonders. But one question persists, unanswerable and urgent. If the thunder beings have watched these falls for 13,000 years, if they have witnessed ice sheets retreat and rivers carve gorges and civilizations arise around this roaring edge of stone, what do they see now that we cannot? And what will they witness in the hours ahead?